Good morning. Let's keep on moving. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about learning a new framework, or rather the process I think you should have for when it comes to adopting new technologies. And in this specific little video of mine, it's going to be about like JavaScript frameworks. So I made a video a little while back where I talked about, where I highly suggest that you don't pick Angular as your first framework, and I still stick by that. I don't think that's a good start for anybody who wants to learn a framework, but I did get a comment that touched on a fairly important thing as well, which is the idea that, oh well, you shouldn't start with a framework, you should learn vanilla JavaScript first. Well, I responded to the comment, which it was a great comment, because it's true. It's absolutely true. Like it's kind of why I wanted to make this video. It's very important that you understand the fundamentals of JavaScript before you understand a framework. Now, what I want to say in the same breath as, you should learn fundamental JavaScript before you learn a framework, is that you kind of have to, you pretty much have to accept that the time it will take you to become proficient in just vanilla JavaScript is going to be longer than it makes sense for you to hold off on learning a framework. Now, there are some purists out there that will tell you that, you should do things in pure JavaScript and etc. and you should avoid using frameworks and dependencies because there's just a lot of bother involved. And frankly, they are wrong. Well, rather, they're not wrong, but they have an opinion about this that is very warped from or distorted from the real world. Now, I'll give you my best rule of thumb when it comes to, or rather the mindset that you should have when picking a new framework or a tool or whatever. You should only, and I mean only, you should only pick a framework or a library as a supplement to what you're doing. It should be an informed decision for you where you only care about complexity or time that is going to be saved from using the framework. That's like what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that I don't use React because I don't know how to make my own React framework. I know how to build a very shitty React framework if I wanted to, and if I really wanted to, I could, in theory, make a framework that is on par with React. It would just take a lot of time. It would take a lot of time to build it. And frankly, my goal is, when I'm using React, is not to build that framework, it's to build something else. And somebody's come along and graciously enough, built me this amazing tool, and they support it, and well made, and I can now use that, and that advances my ability to write my own stuff. That's the mindset. Your mindset needs to be that the approach is that you have to already know the fundamentals of how a tool works in order for it to make sense to add it to your stack. Otherwise, you're simply using it as a crutch. You're simply, and that's kind of where a few people get it wrong, in my opinion. It's if you use a tool without understanding how it works, or at least grasping the concepts that it is using to provide this value to you, then you're adding things to the stack without knowing what you're doing, and that's actually very dangerous. You'll create a mess of issues where, well, in my opinion, that's usually how you mess up a code base, where you get into there's too many dependencies, nobody really knows what's going on, and just don't do that. So to respond in a proper way to the statement about learning vanilla JavaScript first, Absolutely. You should absolutely go to Code Academy or whatever and basically learn. You need to learn proper JavaScript first. Learn how to like mutate HTML elements and do all that stuff in the browser. And when you know that, then you go over to React or Vue or even Angular if you really want to. There's also Aurelia, but you don't start out that way, because if you don't, I would even go on further and say I don't think that anybody, or rather I would be very surprised if there's a complete beginner out there who starts with these frameworks, because they are not trivial to get started with. So, but maybe there are people who ignore JavaScript and just jump into the framework immediately, and if you do, please don't do that. You're just going to make things worse for yourself. And so yeah, that's pretty much my opinion on the matter. Start by learning the fundamentals and the basics and the underlying stuff first, and then move into frameworks. And I will also say that sometimes you will hear people say that you don't need a framework, and this is kind of me saying that they're wrong for a lot of reasons. The reason why you still need certain frameworks and so forth, like especially in JavaScript land, is because they forget the problems that these frameworks are solving for you. They are increasing your productivity, and they, especially React does this very well. They allow you to structure an application. They offer you a blueprint for how to write an application in a way that scales very well over time, and it makes the project much easier to maintain. Because remember, like, people were using jQuery a lot just a few years ago, and the code bases that we have today in front-end land, most of them are a complete mess. So if you tell me that it's just like frameworks and stuff like that, that's not like the argument doesn't make sense to me, that there's no value in using a framework. There's a large value. There's an immense value, but you should know what you're doing. You don't add a framework just because it's cool. You need to know what the value is, and for the most part, React and Angular and Vue are going to provide you with a really good basis for writing a fairly, almost any application, and that's the value. It will help you write better code, and it will help you do it faster. That's the goal. That's what you should take away from this. If you only take away a single thing from this video, tools and frameworks and third-party dependencies are there to save you time. They should not be you should know what they do, and you should understand what's happening. Ideally, you should have the knowledge to know how to build your own implementation of this framework, and it's really only it really only should come down to saving time. That's the mentality. Know your stuff, know the dependencies, and save time. That's the way you should think about it.